First impressions are everything, especially with the attention span of gamers today. You gotta hook players fast, whether from either the first cutscene or the opening mission, anything to grab and latch onto a player to keep them invested. I've played a lot of games in my life, and there are many fantastic openings to a lot of games, but I feel like I've managed to narrow it down to my personal top 10. So without further delay, let's get started. Honorable mention, I gotta get out of the way first, has to be Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. After seeing the glow up of Raiden from Metal Gear Solid 2 to 4 and what he's capable of, to being able to play as Cyborg him in Revengeance was a thing of beauty. Raiden rocking a nice black suit to immediately ripping it off and getting his sword ready to slice and dice any and every enemy he sees. Eventually a Metal Gear Ray model shows up and your first boss fight begins. Cue epic music, and Raiden catches the arm of Ray and chucks him like an expired turkey sandwich before cutting him down.
Swing it wide open! Very good!
And if you thought it ended there, boy oh boy are you in for a hell of a game. Leap 4, leaping across missiles, running and sliding down a building, dodging lasers and debris, before finally cutting Ray in half. And that's not even the end of the opening. You still have an unwinnable boss fight against the other big booty cyborg, Sam. This game is a meme-filled banger from start to finish. Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. I have only two words for you: Darth Vader. In a game well known for now having one of the most powerful characters in Star Wars, no longer canon sadly, Starkiller, it's easy to forget how the game opened, by having the opening level be played by an overpowered Darth Vader, showing everyone in the galaxy why he's the GOAT. Force throwing and pushing Wookiees all over the place, grabbing some of your own stormtroopers and just dangling them around, tossing them off into the unknown, will never not be satisfying. Culminating with a boss fight against a Jedi at the end, and Darth Vader taking on his second apprentice, it's one of my favorite Star Wars openings ever. Doom 2016. This is a game that wastes absolutely zero time getting you right into the action. Game begins with Doom Guy, the Slayer, waking up, breaking free of his shackles. You kill a few demons, he puts on his suit, eviscerates an entire room of more demons, gets into an elevator. The obvious villain makes contact as the Slayer looks down at the corpse while he says it was for the betterment of mankind. Then you can see his hands trembling with rage and just snapping when he says it was worth the risk, smashing the monitor. The guitars kick in, it cuts to the title, and he cocks his shotgun. Hell of a way to start the game.
Your son has returned. I bring the destruction of Olympus!
God of War 3. To relive this opening again for the first time would be a blessing. God of War 2 is one of the best games ever made. It was beautifully paced, a story thoughtfully told with an actual good time travel plot. Shocker, I know. And has an amazing cliffhanger. So where does God of War 3 begin? Literally right at the cliffhanger, with Kratos riding on the back of Gaia and a whole army of titans climbing Mount Olympus to kill the remaining gods. You're fighting enemies on her body as Poseidon keeps interfering with his weird water horse crab thing, and it honestly might be the best part of the entire game. Don't get me wrong, the game is fantastic, but they went all out on this opening level. Anyone that got into God of War in 2018 with the soft reboot is doing themselves a huge disservice by not replaying the original saga, just to get to the beginning of God of War 3 at least. Trust me. Mass Effect 2 and 3, I'm going to kind of lump these together because I'm cheating a little bit. Let me just say this up front. The Mass Effect trilogy, which I kind of consider one very long game, is my favorite of all time. I still remember, I think it was E3 2009 or some press conference where Casey Hudson was showcasing the opening of Mass Effect 2. The opening being the destruction of the Normandy and the death of Commander Shepard, the main character and ship from the first game. Within minutes of Mass Effect 2's opening, the Normandy is attacked by an unidentified species with superior technology, causing half the crew to die and the ship to be destroyed. Before that, Shepard manages to escort the pilot, Joker, Seth Green, to an escape pod while Shepard is ultimately left to die out in the vacuum of space. But don't worry, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology. But I don't want to spend a lot of money.
Or at least Cerberus, a human extremist group, essentially brings Shepard's meat and tubed body back from the dead. And from there, one of the best games ever truly begins. And that's not even bringing up Mass Effect 3. For 2 whole games, Shepard has been telling the Council that the Reapers are coming, this force that wipes out all of the galaxy every 50,000 years, every cycle. And all of that comes to fruition when they finally invade Earth. You are ground zero at Earth as all these Reapers are coming down from the sky, and you are knowing you are fighting a losing battle. It's an amazing opening, and you just see the destruction of the first time you're seeing Earth here and just being obliterated. These 2 games have some of the best openings in gaming, in my opinion, but I am biased because it's my favorite of all time. Resident Evil 4, the game that changed the entire industry and became a timeless classic that some games still try and fail to replicate. Not only was this an entire gameplay switch from previous Resident Evil games, it revolutionized third-person shooters back in the day. Leon S. Kennedy, the protagonist from the second game, has been tasked with tracking down the president's daughter, who has supposedly been kidnapped and taken to a remote Spanish village. The beginning is a slow build-up as Leon finds himself a seemingly harmless local to question, who then tries to take a swing at him with an axe, after taking him down and fighting off a few more villagers leading to the main square, and this is where all hell breaks loose. A lot of players today can probably get through this fight no problem, but first-time players will probably struggle as Leon gets severely outnumbered quickly. You're running out of ammo, you're running out of supplies, you gotta break into houses, you're boarding up the windows and the doors, kicking down ladders and hoping for the best as the enemies never seem to die down, until you hear that ominous sound. A new chainsaw-wielding enemy with a ton of health, cutting through your barricades and letting the horde in. Staying alive long enough triggers a cutscene where the church bell rings and all the enemies just drop their weapons and bounce. And right before the title screen, Leon drops one of the most badass, memorable lines in gaming.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Assassin's Creed 2. Top 3, if not still the best game in the Assassin's Creed franchise, and for good reason. Game starts off with Lucy breaking Desmond out of Abstergo to move to a hidden location to try and use the Animus on another ancestor, this time being of one of the best characters in gaming history, Ezio Auditore da Firenze. Once in the Animus, we get a first look at the young, brash, teenage Ezio in a street fight, before eventually being challenged to a foot race to the top of a tall building by his brother. And once at the top, one of the most beautiful songs in gaming begins as the title pulls up and the brothers share a heartfelt quote about never changing. Still my favorite opening in the entire series, and the soundtrack Ezio's Family has become the main theme for the entire franchise from then on.
It is a good life we lead, brother.
The best. May it never change.
And may it never change us.
Ghost of Tsushima, definitely the most recent game on this list and still one of the most memorable to me. Protagonist Jin and his uncle look on as the Mongols cut down the first samurai in an honorless way. The small army of samurai look on and they charge with their horses down to the beach, cutting every Mongol they find. The samurai are vastly outnumbered and all end up slaughtered except your uncle who's captured and Jin who is severely wounded. Your savior, a thief named Yuna, helps you escape and you launch a suicide mission by yourself to try and save your uncle. After failing to do so, you fall from a bridge into the waters below, where you meet Yuna again, get on your horse, ride through the forest before coming to a beautiful clearing of flowers where Jin reaches down and runs his hands through them as the music swells and the title drops. It's one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen in gaming. Uncharted 2. What more can be said about Uncharted 2 that hasn't already been said before? Hell, even J.J. Abrams once said it was his favorite opening to any piece of media ever. We start the game with a close-up of Nate. First, he's just chilling in a train. Then we see that, unfortunately, he's bleeding. Then we see that he's in the train, and the entire train is hanging off the edge of a giant cliff. And then Nate almost falls to his death, barely managing to grip onto some pipe he's hanging in midair, and there's a fall a few hundred meters right beneath. You slowly climb your way around, over in the dangling train, making your way through, over, around it, and then you're sprinting at the very top at your last-ditch effort to jump to solid ground. It's a thrilling opening that has players wondering, how did Nate end up this way? And we flash back to playing through the game up to this moment. This was the beginning of Naughty Dog's dominance, in my eyes, in storytelling. BioShock. I'm sure everyone on planet Earth has either heard of or played this game at some point. While it is still well known for having one of the best twists in gaming near the end, it's hard to argue that this game also has one of the best openings as well. The intro to BioShock introduces us to Jack, the unfortunate passenger of a plane crash in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. With a stroke of luck, quote unquote, the crash happens near a mysterious lighthouse, and inside, Jack finds a bathysphere, an underwater submersible that takes him to the underwater city of Rapture. The creator of said city, Andrew Ryan, gives a speech during this deep sea ride that surely rivals among the best monologues gaming has to offer. And in the middle of it all, the music ramps up considerably to an amazing crescendo of the reveal of said city. It still gives me chills to this day.
I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose Rapture.
The Last of Us. What more can be said about this opening that hasn't already? Naughty Dog has already solidified themselves at this point as probably the top PS3 developer at the time with the Uncharted trilogy. So when this game was first announced, it was such a departure in tone to everything they've done before. A lot of zombie post-apocalypse games only depict the aftermath of the outbreak, but The Last of Us begins at the beginning. You go through the prologue as main playable character Joel, his daughter Sarah, until shit hits the fan and you have to carry her running through streets of infected. It all culminates in one of the most gut-wrenching, heartbreaking scenes in video games. Till this day, it's hard to say if an opening of a game has affected me more, and it's only the beginning of one of the best stories ever told, if not one of the best video games ever made. And those are my top 10 openings in video games, at least off the top of my head. I'm sure other people have a very different list, or even some of the same. Hell, even my list might change from time to time. This is just me spitballing from things I can remember very quickly. I'm curious to hear what you guys' favorite openings are, especially if they aren't on my list. Let me know down below, leave a comment, a like, subscribe if you enjoy any of this dumb stuff I do. Anyways, talk to you next time.